Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive into some really fascinating territory.
Yeah.
We are talking about trust issues in relationships,
Yeah, right.
specifically how to overcome them.
Yeah.
We got a really interesting article excerpt actually from one of our listeners,
Okay.
and they're really looking for, I think, kind of a path forward.
Yeah.
They've identified that this is something that they want to work on,
Sure.
and they want to kind of get some advice, I think, on how to move past that.
Absolutely. Rebuilding trust, especially after it's been broken, it's not a quick fix.
Right.
It's a process.
Yeah.
So hopefully these tips will provide a framework for being able to do that.
For sure. And, I think the first one that really stood out to me is this idea of communicating openly. And I think that,
Yeah.
that seems obvious, but
Right.
like,
Right.
how do you even begin to do that when you are, carrying around all of this baggage, right? Like, what
Yeah.
does healthy communication even look like at that point?
When we're talking about healthy communication in the context of trust issues, what we're really talking about is vulnerability and being open about not just what your past hurts are or your past experiences, but what you've learned from them and how they've shaped how you move forward, and setting clear expectations for the present and for the future, and not letting those past patterns dictate how you're going to act moving forward with this new person.
So don't let the past, write the story of the present.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is to be transparent. And I can see how this one could be a little tricky
Sure.
because I can see this being
Mm.
misconstrued as like, okay, so now I have to like live under a microscope to
Right.
prove that I'm being transparent.
It's not about oversharing or giving constant updates or, having your phone unlocked at all times or anything like that. It's about being consistent in your words and actions. And those small things over time add up. And that really builds the foundation of trust.
Oh, that's
Like, for example, let's say you are somebody who likes to keep their weekends open,
hmm
and you're just starting to date somebody, even mentioning that up front, rather than being like, oh, yeah, I'm free this weekend. And then that becomes a pattern of, you know, you not really being honest about what you're doing.
right.
Just small things like that make a really big difference.
That makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
because it's that, it's like death by a thousand cuts type of thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you're constantly kind of like getting these little paper cuts of like, oh, wait, but you said this and then you did that. It's like eventually you're just going to bleed out.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to move forward in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the next one is practice patience. And I think this is a big one
Yeah.
when you're thinking about rebuilding trust because I think that, you know, it's so easy to fall into the trap of like, okay, well, we've talked about it, so like, let's just move on.
Right.
But that's not how it works.
It takes time. It takes time to heal from those betrayals, and it's unrealistic to expect instant forgiveness or for all of those walls to come down overnight. So being patient with the other person as well as yourself as you work through those complex emotions is really, really key.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And this next one, I think, is something that we all struggle with.
Yeah.
And this is this idea of avoid projecting,
Right.
which I think is so easy to do
Yes.
when you're talking about, past relationships, right? Because you've been hurt before.
Right.
And so now you're seeing like, oh, well, this is a red flag or this is a yellow flag or whatever, because in the past this happened.
Right.
So how do you differentiate between like what is a legitimate concern and what is you just projecting?
That's such a great question. And it really all comes down to self-awareness and recognizing what your triggers are if something feels off, instead of jumping to conclusions about what it could be or what it means based on your past experiences.
Yeah.
Communicate it directly to your partner and talk about it openly rather than letting it fester.
Yeah, because that never helps anything.
Never.
Yeah. So this kind of leads into the last point, which is seeking professional help if needed.
Yeah.
At what point do you think is it time to maybe, call in the reinforcements?
When those trust issues become a persistent obstacle in your relationship, and when they start impacting your well-being or your partner's well-being, that's definitely a sign that it could be time to seek professional help, because a therapist can provide a safe space and give you tools to work through those challenges.
It's so true. And I think this has been a really great conversation about, it's a really important topic. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that this is like a lifelong,
Right.
journey. It's not like you arrive at trust.
Yeah.
It's something that you're constantly building and working on.
Yeah, healing and growth are ongoing processes. So, continue to communicate openly, practice empathy, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself emotionally.
And on that note, we're going to leave you with this one thought, which is What is one small action, maybe even something seemingly insignificant that you can take today to start to foster more trust in your relationships?
Mm,
Because I think that, sometimes it really is just those little tiny steps that can kind of put you back on the right path.
absolutely.
So thank you all so much for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.